Perfect. So once you're logged into your Filevine, you'll navigate to your advanced menu in order to get to Customs Editor. This advanced menu, if you don't see it, is a permission that you would need to be given. This advanced feature is where you'll go to make any edits to your entire org. So they do limit access on who can come in here. Today, we're going to be going over Customs Editor, and we'll go over contact setup as well. They kind of work hand in hand together to make sure that you're able to track the necessary information for your cases or your clients in both of those areas. So we'll go into Customs Editor first. Customs Editor is where you're going to go to edit your templates. So those are the items where you're kind of going in to add in any fields. If you have personal injury cases, you would likely have a personal injury template. If you have criminal cases, you would have a criminal template. So some of you may have just one template. Some of you may have a variety. Each template houses different fields, different sections, different folder structures, kind of that whole thing. So you will want to make sure that when you're coming in, you choose the correct project type that you're going to want to be working on. You'll see we have quite a few. That's because we have a lot of best practices templates in here. But I'm going to find the one that says free help. So there we go. So I want to make edits, additions to kind of this template. As soon as I click into that, it'll open up into our sections. Again, and these are where you're going to track all of your case data. So you'll see a variety of sections already listed in here. If I would like to add a new section, I'll just go here to create new section. And then I have the ability to name it whatever I'd like. I can change this little icon. Some folks really like to get creative and jazz it up. So you can choose whatever you'd like for that icon. And then you'll see your default section visibility. This is important because it allows you to say, hey, I always want this to show. I don't want folks to have the ability to turn this section on or off. Or, hey, I only need this section some of the time, and I don't need it when I first start a case. I want it kind of later on, again, if I need it. That would be these initially visible or hidden sections. So initially visible and initially hidden allow you to toggle sections on or off, depending again on when you need them. And you would do that here. We can show you on the front end where you'll go to manage sections that are initially visible and initially hidden, but you'll want to make sure that your section visibility is accurate. You can add in internal notes. Folks will only be able to see this on the advanced side. You're not going to see this when you actually go into a section. And then you'll choose your section type. You'll see there's some built-in sections. Built-in sections are sections that are hard coded into the system. The only thing that you can change on them is the name and the icon. So if I were to click into this built-in section, you'll see that there's kind of no other options for me when I press save. It doesn't allow me to add in any sections or anything like that, or any fields into that section. So I want to make sure that my section type is custom so that I can add in fields there. This asks me if I want it to be a collection section. Again, for those of you that are familiar with Filevine, hopefully you know the difference between static and collection, but for those of you that are not as familiar, a collection section allows you to track or to add in as many items that you need within a section. So if you're like, hey, some clients only have 4 medical providers, some have 15. I want the flexibility to be able to add in as many as necessary. Collection sections allow you that flexibility. Static sections are things like your intake or items like that, maybe a settlement section, something that you're only tracking one of, or you have a limited scope of data that you're collecting, so it's easy for you to add those fields. There are some things to remember or note about collection sections. Collection sections are great, but you can't pull data or specific data from a collection section into like your vitals, for instance. And if you have a doc gen, it needs to be housed if you're pulling collection section info in that collection section. So just some things to kind of note as you're deciding which type of section to select. I'm just going to leave it as a static section. All of the fields and widgets that you can add are the same regardless if you choose a collection section or a static section. So I'm going to press save so that we can go ahead and start adding in some fields or widgets. You'll see here, I don't have any because this is a brand new section. If I were to go into a section that's already created, you'll see here our intake. It lets me know that this is a custom section. Unlike our built-in sections, again, I can add fields or widgets to these custom areas. So I can come in here and I'll see a list of fields or widgets in my already created sections. You can always edit, add, do whatever you need to these sections. Before we jump into editing an already kind of created section, we'll go ahead and add some fields to this test section. So I just click here to add my field or widget, and it'll automatically pop up in the field category, and your field type is automatically going to be a text single line. There's a variety of options here for field types that you can add. Field types are essentially where you're going to place your data. So if you're tracking a settlement amount, you'll likely want to use a currency instead of a text line. Texts are open text fields, so you can type in numbers, letters, whatever you need to in there, spaces, special characters. These fields up here limit you to only being able to type in currency amounts, decimal amounts, numbers, percentages. That's nice because then the system essentially makes it so that you're consistent across the board. Anytime someone puts something into the settlement amount, you know that it's a dollar amount. These amount fields are connected to these calculated fields. So if you want the system to do a little bit of math for you, you'll go ahead and use those calculated fields. You do have to add in the amount fields or, whichever amount field you want before adding in a calculated currency or calculated field, because it asks you to add in a formula. So you'll see, hey, you have to have some eligible fields before you can add in this calculated field. Date is just a standard date field. It's just for you to track historical data, right? So date of intake, you would just use a date field. Something that you don't care if it's calendar, you don't want reminders on, there's no do or done or anything like that, is just a date field. The deadline with reminders fields, those are the fields that are going to calendar for you. They're going to send you reminders based off of a reminder schedule you can select if you're subscribed to the project. And it allows you to know when the due date is and once that date is completed. These deadline with reminder fields do allow you to attach a reminder schedule. These reminder schedules can vary depending on which deadlines you'd like. You'd obviously have to go in and add reminder schedules before you can attach it here, but you'll see we have some already listed out. So you can say, hey, I want my 30-day reminder for this specific deadline. Again, once you add data into that due field, you'll get reminders from the system as long as you're subscribed for this specific deadline until you add in a done date. These fields are really great for one-off deadlines or really important deadlines, statute of limitations, things like that. You'd want to use this field for. A drop-down list allows you to specify or narrow down exactly what folks can choose. Again, really great option as opposed to just an open text field, so that there is some uniformity in what's selected, because the system currently cannot decipher or differentiate that California with a capital C and California with a lowercase c are the same, or Florida spelled out and FL are the same. Drop-down list allow you to have a prescribed set of options for folks to choose from, so that when you're going in to do reporting or kind of anything like that, you know that when Florida is selected, it's the same across the board, and the system will pick up kind of all of those options. File attachments allow you to add in documents into that section. We don't really suggest utilizing the single file attachment. The multiple file attachment is a little bit better because it allows you flexibility, so that when you are uploading files, if you're like, usually we only have one, but every now and then we have two, this gives you the flexibility to add in 1, 2, however many that you have. With Customs Editor, once you create a field and you've started adding in data in a project in that field, you can't delete that field. So that's why we recommend always going with the multiple file attachment. That way, again, you cover your bases. You don't have to worry about trying to add in a new field to capture those additional attachments. These attachments, if you have AI fields, are also connected to AI fields, so you'll need to come in and add the multiple file attachment option in order. You can do the single one, but again, multiple is better for those AI fields. Incident date is one of the only fields that will track multiple sections. It'll like mirror itself essentially. And you'll want to be careful or cognizant if you do use incident date that that's the field that you're pulling into DocGens, for instance. So just a note there. Multi-select lists are really great. It allows you to select multiple things. So for instance, if you are trying to track your client's injuries, maybe on intake, you want to select kind of all of the injuries that they have, you can go ahead and do that there. Your person fields are those contact cards that allow you to add in a person's name, birth date, email, all of that. These are connected to that contact setup that I talked about. So we will pop into the contact setup so you can see kind of how it impacts these fields here. But if I were to click on this person field, you'll see that I can select any contact type, or I can limit my search to a specific contact type. You'll notice that as you kind of are going through Filevine, that you may have someone with a similar name or the exact same name, one that's a client, one that's a defendant, one that's a provider, so on and so forth. And so limiting this contact type allows the system to search just for providers with that name. That way you're not having to try to scroll through all of the John Smiths to see which one is the provider that you're needing versus the client or defendant. And then you also have the ability to limit to project contacts. It's optional. That would just search the contacts that are in your project, not your entire address book. So just a note there. And one thing I did fail to mention, my apologies here on this file attachment, is that you do have the ability to auto move it to a folder. So you could say, hey, anytime I upload a document into this field, put it into this folder in my docs section. You can auto add tags. This just eliminates an extra step for you and your staff to have to do to get stuff moved around. The person list field allows you to add in multiple people. And so if there's a field where it's like witnesses, for instance, and you don't have a witness section that's tracking that, you can add in your witnesses as a person list. So that way you can track all of those individuals in their own contact cards under kind of that same title. Project link and project link list are something that should be done with a implementation partner because they are a little bit nuanced. It does allow you to connect or link projects together. So for instance, if you have two clients, one is a mom and a kid or something like that, they got into an accident, and there's similarities between the cases, but obviously they're two separate cases. You can link the two together so that you can easily add documents and share items kind of between the two. Your standard text fields are just that. They allow you to add in text. The text fields are one of the only options here in Customs Editor that allow you to alter it once it's been created. For all of the ones that I've talked about before, once you add in that, that field and then again add items to it, it doesn't allow you to change it. Even before you add in items, you can't change the type. Once you've added it in, you'll have to delete it and re-add it. Again, once you have data in there, you can't delete it. So you'll just want to be cognizant as you're selecting items here. But these text fields do allow you to say, hey, if I started out with a single line and I decide I want multiple line, I can change those around. URL and URL list allow you to add in website URLs so that it's easy for you to just click and it takes you directly to there. And then yes, no is just that. It asks you yes, no, or unknown to a question. If you do require this field to be answered in that section, you'll only have the option for yes, no. Required fields are essentially saying, hey, you have to have something in this field in order to save the page. In order to make something required, you'll go here to where it says advanced properties, and you'll see that there's a few items here. Required is the one that we just talked about. And if you're ever confused or forget what these are, you can always use the question mark and it will break down kind of what what checking this box will do. So again, it requires you to answer for it to be saved, which is why that yes, no doesn't have an unknown if it's required, because you have to answer yes or no on that. You'll also see down here the ability to lock a field. Locking it allows it to only be edited by a project admin. And then obsoleting a field will essentially make it so that any projects in the future that you create, you won't see this field. It will still retain all of the historical data from previous cases. There'll just be a strike through the title. You'll see here in our intake, we have a couple of obsolete fields. Anything with this strike through, it's gray, lets you know that this is obsolete. Something, again, that will not be shown on any cases moving forward, but will be shown on all previous cases that have data in it. Obsoleting a field usually is because, again, you have data, you no longer want to track that, but you can't delete the field. You are able to unobsolete by clicking that checkbox, and it will unobsolete it, again, making it so that it's shown on all of your projects. Perfect. And then you'll see just above these three, you have visibility. Visibility allows you to say, hey, I only want this field to show when this criteria is met. So if you have a yes or no, or let me go back to our intake where we actually have data here. So you'll see we have our incident type. So I could use incident type as criteria. So when dog bite is selected, I want to know the type of animal. So I would go to, I think we already have that in here. So let me look for that field. Animal owner. So here under advanced properties, show when my incident type contains the word dog, because dog bite is was one of those drop down items. We always add in the internal notes what this visibility is, so that without clicking into it, you know that this is connected to another field. So that if you make any changes to that incident type, it's going to impact other fields here. Making items contingent is really great because it allows for you to only show what's needed when you're in there. It's a little less overwhelming for folks going in so that they're not seeing, you know, especially in an intake, if you're personal injury and you do, you know, 8 different types of personal injury, to see all of those versus only the ones that you need for this specific case. So would highly recommend utilizing this visibility kind of whenever you can. And you'll see here that text, I'm able to change it to a few other options. But if I were to go into my multiple file attachment, doesn't allow me to do that. My drop-down list doesn't allow me to do that. So again, just be cognizant there. Outside of the fields, there are also widgets. Widgets are kind of your actionable items. So things that you need to do or things that need to get that are done or need to be done. So you'll see here, there's a list of kind of actionable items here. Your action buttons include a link button. This link button will essentially allow you to jump to another section in Filevine. This is nice if you're like in an intake and you're getting medical information. You obviously want to put that in your medical section for our PI folks. This button will allow you to jump to that section, fill out the information you need, and still go back into the intake or have the intake open in a separate tab, exactly where you left off. In order to do this, there is kind of a, maybe if you don't know, you don't know. You'll see here, it says button URL. That is, let me go ahead and open up a project so you all can see how to do this. This is one of the fields where you have to do a little bit more than just adding in a title. Okay, let's go to my project hub. So if I want to go into my medical section from whatever section that I'm currently in order to, again, add in that button URL, you'll open up a project. You'll go to the section that you want that button to go to, and you'll copy the URL here in the bar. And then you'll paste it under button URL. And then just one more step, you'll see a series of numbers right here just after project slash. That is your project ID. That is a unique number assigned to every single project by the Filevine system. And so if we were to keep this in here, every time we press that button, regardless of which project it's in, it will take us back to the project that we copied it from. We obviously don't want that. We want it to go to the project that we're in. So in order to get that changed that it does that, this little question mark has a few replacement codes. You'll take the second one, which is project ID, and you'll copy that and then just replace that series of numbers with that replacement code and press save, and then it will allow you to open up the correct section in the project that you're currently in. And then the other action buttons, send an email. This allows you to have an already drafted email to maybe a provider or your client or really any contact that you have in Filevine. The nice thing about these email action buttons is you can take data directly from Filevine and populate it here into the email so that you're not having to retype the information that you've just typed into Filevine into this email. You have the option to CC the project, which again is nice because once you send this out, it comes right back into Filevine and saves that in the activity feed. You can automatically address it to your client or to a provider or really anyone, again, any other contact. In order to figure out the replacement codes, you'll see a link just above here that says available replacement fields. This will open up a list of all of the replacement fields that you can utilize within this email button or email section. Anytime I'm opening up a replacement field list, I always like to use Command F or Control F if you're on a PC. That way it's a little bit easier to search because once this loads, you'll notice that it is a very long list. It is pulling a ton of fields from your Filevine. You'll see the scroll bar here is very tiny. And so you want to make sure that you're able to, not have to waste your time scrolling through all of the options kind of here. So Command F, again, I'm on a Mac, PC, I believe is Control F. And you can type in the title. So if I want my client's email, I just type that in. We'll give it a second to search for us. Perfect. So you'll see a couple of options. This is pulling all of your clients' emails. This is pulling a count of the emails. This is pulling the first email address that's in their contact card or the second or third, so on and so forth. You can copy one of those if you'd like. You can use the arrows to navigate through kind of the other options there. Once you've found the link or the one that you want and you've copied it, you just paste it into here. Same thing with the body. Hello, and maybe I want my client's full name. I can just type that into this list here. Copy that and paste it into here so that when I press this button in an actual project, it's going to pull in my client's name here. If I'm in another project, it'll pull that client's name, so on and so forth. You can add an incident date. Again, important to note that if you use that incident date field, this is the code for it. If you don't, and you're just using a regular date field, you don't want to use this incident date code because it's not going to match in the system. So just a note there. These are set fields within Filevine. So that's always going to show up at the top. But if you have an incident date field, you'll want to scroll. So you could say, we are pleased to present or kind of whatever you need to say there. Again, this will pull in that incident date that you filled in. You can add a subject. And then anytime that you're in a project, you'll just press that button. Again, it'll populate all of this information for you and you can send it out. The last option under action buttons is a task flow trigger. Task flows, as you all know, can be triggered either via a button or a phase. If you do it via a button, that's essentially just saying, hey, we know that this task needs to get done. Maybe it doesn't need to be triggered anytime we change a phase, or it doesn't always need to be triggered for every single case. But if we run into a case that does need this specific task to be done, we want to have that option. These trigger buttons are a great kind of solution for that. You'll type in, what you want that prompt to be named. You can do the action button associated with that. So if it's, okay, we're under expenses, someone is traveling, there's some things that we need to do if someone needs to travel. Maybe you want to add the airplane. You do need to come in and create these buttons before you can go in and create the actual task associated with this button. So you'll press create, and then you can go into the task flow section here under the advanced menu and add in the actual task associated with it. This just creates a button in this section for you to be able to click. Outside of action buttons, you do have some DocGen buttons. Similar to your multiple file attachment, it's recommended that you use the multi-template for DocGens. Again, right now you may only have one template that you want uploaded in there, but adding in the multi-template allows you the flexibility for later down the line to be able to add in additional templates. Instruction fields allow you to help personalize or customize your Filevine in a little bit of a different way. So you're able to add in text, just standard text, no field associated with it. So you're not tracking any actual data with your instruction fields. What you're doing is adding in helper text for your staff as they kind of navigate those sections, reminders, anything like that. You can also use these as spacers. So within Filevine, if you don't have things spaced out properly, or if you only have two things on one line, they'll center between each other. If you have three things, it'll put them in thirds. And so it's a little bit difficult for the eye to track if it's always 3, 2, 4, and it varies. So you'll want to use spacers in order to make it so that everything aligns nicely. And again, it's easier for your eyes to track. Or even to add spacing between sections so that it's not always on top of each other. I can show you what that looks like because we should have some spacers here in our project. So you'll see here at the very top, these are instruction fields. Again, text that help your staff to navigate what this section entails, or just reminders about what needs to be done in this section. These can be added in anywhere. You'll see some down here. You'll see different colored text. You can use strike throughs, bold, large letters, kind of whatever you need to in these instruction text. As far as spacers, you'll see here, is a client a minor? And I select yes. Name of personal representative is in alignment with the other options above it, even though there's only 2 things on this row. Typically, if there's 3 things, again, this would be somewhere over here, making it a little bit harder for the eye to track. So the utilization of instructions is helpful. With the instruction text, if you type anything into this box here, it will show up here. If you're doing a spacer, I always just do spacer 1, 2, and match it to whichever row and order that it's in. The row and the order are essentially where they're going to be laid out within that section. So this allows you to say, hey, I want this to be in the very first row, and I want it to be the second item in that row, or the third item, so on and so forth. Filevine always starts with order 0, even though that's the first position. And then you'll just add numbers after that. Should have done that, sorry. So that's instruction text. Outlaw templates you'll only utilize if you have FVDA, or if you took advantage of Filevine's settlement calculator that they gave, you would use an outlaw template widget for that. Report fusions are the ability for you to take data from multiple collection sections and put it into one document. If you remember, I mentioned at the beginning, collection sections do have some limitations. If you're doing a doc gen and you're pulling data from a collection section, it has to live in that collection section, and it can only pull from that collection section. Or report fusions allow you to pull from multiple collection sections. So you could say, hey, I want info from my liens and my med section. You would then do a report fusion in order to get data from both of those sections into one document or one Excel sheet. Again, always recommend using that multi-template. Similar to the multiple file attachment, you do have the option to auto move it to a folder and auto add tags. You'll see here, this is where you'll select your report fusion that you want run on this document, or I'm sorry, in this field. And you can limit it to your project data or not. And then you can choose the export option. For your doc gens, you don't see as many options. It's similar to that multiple file where you add an auto tag and a folder. You'll see here it says this project doesn't have any folder templates set up. We'll dive into where to go to set those up so that you can kind of map those over. And then the last thing on here is a subsection header. This is great to break up kind of your different sections or the different subsections within your sections here. So for intake, you'll see we have some subsections here. Filevine released a feature recently that allows you to have a table of contents. This table of contents is based off of those subsection headers. So you do want to make sure that you utilize those throughout. That way, not only can you utilize them here, but again, it makes it a little bit more easy on the eye to see what you're going to get into in that section, and breaks it up nicely with like a little line to kind of break up those sections as well. Perfect. Any questions about kind of fields or widgets?
No questions so far. I did drop a support article in the chat on the different type of formatting that's available in your instruction text. So you could grab that link from the chat if you're interested.
Thanks, Nikki. And another note, you can also use that formatting in your activity feed. So if you're like, hey, I want stuff to be bold or strike through or whatever else, you can use that in the activity feed as well, which is really nice. So I mentioned kind of those numberings, the order and the row that stuff is on. So you'll see here, these are in row 3, and the order is listed there. There's nothing in the second row, but if you look at our project, there's not really a big space in between. It's the same spacing regardless. And so you can add in as much space as you need. And as long as you don't put something in there, it won't look funky. It won't look like there's 4 lines in between, these items here. Having space in between these allows you to put fields in between them. So right now, if I wanted something to go between my instructions and these action buttons, I don't have any space to put those in. So I would need to make space. And in order to do that, you use the arrows to drop the items down. This will go to 12. Now there's space on 11. If I do 14, now it's on 15. So I have space between those two. To add in a fielder widget, you can add here or here. And I want to say, hey, now I want something on row 13. And I actually want it to be a subsection header. And I want that header to say. So I've added that in. It should fall between my person performing intake and my referral source. If I go back into my project and press refresh, anytime that you make a change in the back end, you'll want to refresh the front end, which would be here where you're putting in these items, so that way you can see those changes. You'll see here, this is a test popped up in between that referral source and person performing intake. And I can always come in and remove it if I don't like it anymore. Because I didn't put data in it, it should allow me to remove it. Perfect. But once we get data in, so let me go ahead and add in data to this referral source. And I'll just refresh this page just in case. Now I gotta find the, there we go. So that referral source field, if I want to delete that out, you'll see I'll get a error message. It says, hey, there's live data in this project. You can mark it obsolete. So that again, it won't show up anymore, but it's not going to delete it because there's data that it wants to maintain in there. Perfect. So that's just a little bit about fields and widgets. The only difference, or one of the only differences, you'll see with the collection section, it lets you know that it's a collection section, but when you click into it, you'll see the ability to show collection options. This is not available in any of your static sections. These collection options allow you to change how you sort the section, the sort order if it's ascending or descending, and then your left and right main field. So let me go into insurance just so that you can see what it looks like. So right now we have our left main field and our right main field. And those are our insurance type and insurance company. I could change this to say I want my policy number to be in that left main field. Again, I'll press save. I'll refresh here. And we don't have anything there, so there's nothing to show. If I were to update this, my policy number, you'll see it pops up there, again, based off of what we've selected here under our collection item options. And then just below these, you'll see the ability to add in a collection export. So this is a really cool option. It allows you to essentially say, hey, I've run a report based on this collection section that pulls the data exactly how I want it to show, whether I've put it in a template so that it, pulls into a certain way, or it only extracts certain data that I need. You can go ahead and add that. You'll press add. It'll let you know if there aren't any available reports. If there aren't, you'll need to go into the report builder, run a report with this specific section. Again, pulling out the fields that you need or want, and also making sure that if you have a template that you want them to fall into, that you create that template. Once you add in that collection section export, here in your collection section, next to the printer icon, you'll see an Excel button, which will allow you to just click that button and export your data. Again, not available in a static section or the built-in sections. These are collection section only options. Okay. Outside of the sections, you do have vitals. These change with every template that you have, so you'll want to make sure that you go in and edit and update these. You do have the ability to have 15 different vitals. Vitals are pertinent information that you want to know at a moment's glance. Your vitals show up in your project here under vitals, and they also show up in the project hub. If you click on the banner, they show up here. So you are able to see them in a variety of places. It allows you to not have to actually open up the project, open up these individual sections to see the data that you need. Now you will see here in our project vitals, we do have some static or information that's pulling in from static sections. And then you'll see some totals. These totals or final balances are pulling in from collection sections. Again, as I mentioned, your collection sections do have some limitations as far as pulling into vitals. You can pull totals, you can pull earliest, latest, things like that, but you wouldn't be able to pull specific info. So I wouldn't be able to pull specific medical provider information into here. And you'll see that here if I go to create new vital and I search for my vital. If I were to select my sorry, I'm looking for the med section.
It was a little bit down, a couple more.
Thanks. So you'll see earliest, latest, averages, highest, lowest, and then some totals here. So those are kind of your only options with those collection sections. You'll see with your static sections like intake that I have contact cards and I'm able to pull in any of the fields from a contact card. This list is super long, similar to that replacement field list. So it's easier to just search to narrow down kind of what you're looking for, but you'll see a lot more options in your static section for vitals. Then you also have the option to change your phases. Your phases, again, same thing with vitals and sections, are unique to this specific template. You can move these items around. You can delete them. If you are going to mess with your phases, the only one that you will not want to mess with is this archived phase here. You'll see it has a little box. This has some hard-coded backend stuff connected to it, and so you won't want to mess with that because it will mess up the hard coding that's associated with this phase. And then you see your folder structure. Once you create a folder structure template, you can create main folders, you can create subfolders here, name them what you want. You'll see that there are a few replacement codes that you can utilize here as well. This will allow you, again, when you're going in to create those doc gens or multiple file attachments, to send it directly into a folder. Now, the one thing that I will note is that if you came in here and, for instance, I said, okay, subfolders, I know that I want my file attachment. I'm going to look to see if we have one in here. I want this file attachment to be mapped to my subfolder, and I press update. And then I go into my folder structure and I delete this folder. Unlike your fields, it will allow you to delete folders, even though they've been mapped into something or they're, stuff like that. If there's documents in it on the front end, it won't delete from that. Your folder structure is not retroactive. It's only for cases moving forward. So if I created cases with that subfolder and then I deleted it, it's still going to be in all of those projects that I created, but any new projects that I create won't have that subfolder. Now, you just saw that in the sections in our intake, I did map it to that subfolder. So what will happen is it essentially creates a phantom folder. So that folder won't show up when I create my document, but as soon as I upload a document into that attachment field, which I think was split fee agreement, it will add in that in that folder. So this is kind of a cool way for you to be able to add in, or only have folders added when you have documents added into that and not be added in there. You'll see it says it's no longer in there. It will still create a folder for you there, though. You can always come in and, remove this out if you do decide, hey, I don't want phantom folders. I don't want that folder at all. You'll just come in here and edit this and, it'll be mapped to whatever new folder that you select. Okay, perfect. So outside of kind of customs editor, again, you do have that contact setup. The thing to note about your contact setup is that whatever data that you put in here should be person specific and not case related. So you want to put claim numbers or incident dates or anything like that in the contact setup, because if you do have another case with this person, their contact card follows them for all of the cases that you have. You wouldn't create new contact cards for each case that they come to you with. So you'll see things like social security number. These are things that don't change frequently or at all, again, that are associated specifically with that person. Similar to Customs Editor, you can add in new fields. So here at the bottom, I have the ability to add in fields. You'll be able to select a field type, again, similar to Customs Editor. You'll select it. You'll type in what you want it to be titled. You'll change the width, which is essentially what else is going to be next to it or what has the ability to be next to it. And then you can go a step further and say, hey, I only want this specific field to show for this contact type. So I can start typing in client, defendant, whatever my contact types are that I want this field to show, I can make it so that, it's limited. I can have it showing for everyone as well. The idea behind custom is, again, similar to that visibility that we saw in Customs Editor. It allows you to say, hey, I only need to see this when I'm working with a client. I don't need to track social security number if I'm adding in a judge or somebody from our firm, because we don't need to track that info. So this is a really great option for you to be able to pick and choose which fields that you want to show. You see at the very top that there's the ability to add additional tabs. So you can always come in here and add in additional tabs. Maybe you work with a ton of experts and you want to be able to track specific information on your experts, like their specialty, or upload their CV, or how much they're charging, anything like that. And you don't want to have to wade through the waters. Maybe you have some other items kind of here that you don't want to have to work through, and you just want to see all of your experts. You can add them in here. You do have to choose an icon for this one. And then you can add in, your field group. This could say expertise. And then you can add in individual fields under that field group. You can add in another field group, add in fields underneath that, and kind of go that route. For your types and labels, you do have the ability to edit those as well. So here under types and labels, you'll see contact types. This is where you can add additional ones and then go into the contact setup to customize kind of where they're showing. One person can have multiple contact types. You'll just want to make sure that, again, when you are going in to create a new contact or contact card, that you have all of that laid out. You'll see here, this Harry Potter is the client and the plaintiff. You can add additional items here if need be, again, hiding or showing based off of what those are. You also have the ability to show date of birth and date of death. It's one of the only things here, in the contact card's very first page, this contact info, that you have the ability to alter. The rest of this first page, you're not able to alter. It is hard-coded. And so you'll see here in contact template that it is grayed out. So that date of birth and date of death is really the only thing that you can edit on here. And then associated projects is also grayed out. Doesn't allow you to edit or make any updates to that page either. Then I cancel so that change doesn't get saved. And then you'll see you have the ability for phone labels, address labels, and email labels. You can remove these if you don't like them. Same thing with the contact types. Filevine will put in just a standard contact template for you, so you can always make changes or edit. The only ones that you can't delete are ones where they are the default contact type. You'll see it listed here, and their trash can is grayed out so that you're not able to delete that unless you change your default contact type. This default contact type is selected in Customs Editor. So like I mentioned, they go hand in hand. Under your project type, this gear will show you what that default contact type is. We don't have one for that employment law. Let's find one that likely has one. Okay, this one doesn't either. But you can select which default contact type you want associated with it, so that when you go in to create a new project, it automatically tags that contact card with this contact type, and again, adds in the fields necessary for you to track that. Perfect. Any questions? I know we're right at time, so I want to make sure that if you all have questions, can get those answered for you.
You were so thorough that we have no questions.
Well, hopefully you all learned something. I love that. Just want to make sure and point out, again, the things that Nikki put into the chat. If you do have any questions or want to engage in Vine Skills Services, feel free to reach out. Both of our emails are in the chat. Again, Vine Skills runs the gamut on all things Filevine. So if you have been in Filevine for a while and you need help with Customs Editor and you're like, this is all great, I just don't have the time to do that, or I want to workshop building out a custom section and kind of get feedback on what that looks like, you can engage our services. We are a month-to-month service, so there's no expectation that you sign on for 4 months to get something done. We work with you to make sure that we come up with a timeline for whatever you need to get done, and make sure that we kind of, again, work together. If you decide after that month that you want to continue working with us, you definitely can, or you can say, hey, we'll pick back up at a later time, or just kind of end it there. You have some flexibility in working with us, but again, we do run the gamut on all things Filevine. So lead docket, Outlaw, Periscope, automations, QuickBooks, we do it all. So if you ever want to kind of work with us, we're definitely here. You can find all of our services on our website as well as pricing. If you have questions about pricing, or just want to get on a scoping call to kind of see what your project would cost and the timeline, we can definitely do that. As I mentioned before, we do record these sessions. Nikki was so kind to post the links to where you can see all of the past recordings, as well as be able to see upcoming sessions for our free help. So feel free to dive into there and watch those as well. And then make sure that you bookmark that support article that Nikki put in there as well, so that you can have quick access to all of the formatting options here in Filevine. Hopefully we hear from you all. If not in another free help session, again, if you need our help with anything Filevine, we look forward to working with you or seeing you again. And thank you so much. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Right.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.